Hurricane Alley. When the maximum sustained winds of a tropical storm reach 74 miles per hour, it's called a hurricane. The hurricane season begins on June 1st and ends on November 30th. Cut. Hurricane Alley is where my boat is sitting right now. Golden Haze Beneteau 323 is afloat in a marina in the middle of the Caribbean island chain, waiting for this hurricane season to come to an end. I left her there in Martinique at the end of April in order to return to Europe and my apartment here in the centre of the old town of Boulogne-sur-Mer in the north of France. I left her in Martinique with a gardenage company in the marina complex who are going to visit her every week, open her up and move her away from the pontoon if a hurricane is thought to be heading her way. As I sit here in July, I am shaken but not yet stirred that the well-known saying of June too soon is actually a load of rubbish.
That big blob there is Cindy. I want to talk about how close it's going to get to Bermuda and Canada. That's going to bring some higher seas. We've got some blobs of rain, what's left of Brett, and a lot of moisture that is going to increase the flooding threat as the week goes on.
At the start of the hurricane season, a tropical storm quickly became a hurricane and tracked across the Atlantic straight for St. Lucia and Martinique, where my boat is. I was horrified, of course, and I watched the daily, sometimes hourly YouTube broadcasts of Mr. Weatherman. Excellent weather site if you have your boat in the Caribbean or the East Coast USA.
So today, Trinidad and Tobago active, next couple days, 50 to 60% chance of rain, but it gets even more active by the time we get into Wednesday.
At the same time, I started to receive emails from the company looking after my boat in the marina, who are called Loka Yacht. They go to the boat once a week and check her out, mooring lines, batteries, and opening the hatches to air her out if it's not raining. And it does tend to rain rather more in the hurricane season. They send me photos of their visit, which often include the battery state. I've disconnected the mains electricity and it's turned off at the marina office. But I left the Bimini up with its 2 solar panels to keep the batteries topped up. So, except when Loka occasionally run the engine, the batteries are being maintained solely on the fact that they're totally cut off, disconnected, and the two little solar panels on the Bimini are pumping some amps in. I must say, receiving all the photos each week from Loka Boat is comforting. When Loka told me they had already moved the boat further away from the pontoon in preparation for the hurricane hit, they asked me if I wanted to have the sails, bimini and spray hood removed. Now, I have roped the cringle on the headsail, so it should be nearly impossible for the wind to unfurl it, as well as locking the furling line twice. The spray hood is pretty robust, and the bimini, if I did lose it and damage the frame, is not that expensive a replacement. So, when I was looking at Mr. Weatherman's predictions, they said it would be a Category 1 with wind speeds of 64 to 82 knots. And I decided not to have Loka remove the sails, bimini and spray hood. I've been out in 65 knots in my previous boat, Westerly Ocean 43, and I was still sailing, but with only a tiny bit of jib and a tiny bit of mainsail up. But it was okay. Not a bundle of fun, but it was okay. So I felt that even my much smaller Golden Haze in a secure marina would probably be okay. Fingers crossed, and truthfully a very difficult decision. So this is my first season with any boat in the hurricane area of the Caribbean. I have left other boats in Trinidad hauled out on the hard on several occasions when I was last there, but never in the hurricane track zone. So I watched 2 or 3 times a day as Mr. Weatherman tracked the approaching as it headed towards Martinique and St. Lucia, with them right in the eye of its predicted path. I've been very open about all the problems I encountered moving Golden Haze onto a ship in Southampton from her berth here in Boulogne, just down there. and the troubles of shipping her to Antigua and the really blustery sails south from Antigua to Martinique. And like a lot of sailors, I'm a bit superstitious, and I did wonder if all the problems and challenges of that were a warning not to do it. I hate the idea that I could be sitting here telling you I'd lost my boat in the Caribbean in the first year of her being there. The night before the hurricane was due to impact, I went to bed and I slept fine. There was nothing I could do. And I knew that in the morning I would know the worst, as bad news always travels fast. That morning I was greeted with emails from the owners of the Texan boat opposite Golden Haze on the pontoon, saying a friend of theirs who was on board his boat had said the marina office didn't even cut the electricity off to the pontoons, and the wind never gusted above 50 knots, and mainly was much less than that. On the channel, Mr. Weatherman.
Winds are down some, always good news. 65 miles per hour or 100 kilometers an hour. That's where we stand. Not seeing any signs that this is going to become a hurricane at this point.
He explained that he had looped south towards Grenada and Trinidad, and the target area of Martinique and St. Lucia had escaped the highest winds. In fact, the main damage done by Sandy was generally its intense rainfall. Well, we've not reached the peak of the hurricane season yet. The frequency of storms peaks in September, then gradually tapers off in November. So there's a way to go, and who knows what the next weeks will bring. Having Loca who are based in the marina complex looking after the boat feels like a good investment. They're charging me £120 a month or 28 quid a week. Even combining this with the marina charge of around £3,000 a year, I'm still paying far less than I would in a UK South Coast marina. I built this gardenage cost into the budget when I was planning on moving the boat. And of course, once I'm back on board, the Loca gardenage cost vanishes straight away. Up to this day, in early August, the weather has been far stormier here in the English Channel and around Boulogne with Storm Anthony than in the Caribbean islands. And after a short spell of hot weather, it has been mainly cold and wet and windy. This makes me feel that moving the boat to the marina 2,500 miles away was probably a good move. Although it will be the height of the hurricane season, I intend flying back to Le Marin, Martinique in mid-September, and finding out what the rainy season in a boat is really like in the warmth of the Caribbean sun. Frankly, I'm finding this European summer too cold, wet and windy. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that I've not been too complacent, and that something horrid doesn't happen between now and September to Golden Haze, and that I can jump in an Air France flight for less money than taking my boat to the UK on the Channel shuttle at peak travel times. Those prices are eye-watering. I'll let you know how it all goes in Hurricane Alley, and hopefully the next video will be from on board Golden Haze and not in the rain. Going sailing again soon, I hope. Bye. Recently I published Your Boat in the Sun, which proved an instant popular success. It's about where to keep your boat in the Mediterranean or the Caribbean and the costs and the logistics involved. I sold 50 copies on the very first day. The Atlantic Crossing Guide has become a bestseller, and it outsells most of the others, probably because it's arguably one of the most comprehensive guides to sailing to the Caribbean that's available. The Gentle Sailing Route to the Mediterranean is one of the most popular publications that I have. It describes how to coast hop all the way to Gibraltar without having to spend a night at sea. My library of digital sailing books is at gentlesailing.com, so you can buy them as instant downloads. There's a link to a printer who can convert them to hard copy if that's what you prefer. I've just totally updated and republished French Canal Routes to the Mediterranean, which is now in its 12th edition and is fully up to date with new information, charts and pictures. There are books about marinas in the Med, sailing in the Caribbean islands, as well as a book on simple navigation and even a Pacific Ocean crossing guide, and a book about just living aboard a sailing boat. Anyway, it's all at gentlesailing.com. So please do pay the site a visit and browse through my publications if you have a moment. Thanks. Fair winds.